Thank you, Reverend. The House will come to order. Yeah, Representative Sanders, come on up. We have a guest, with all due respect, Representative Holtorf. We'll do the journal in a little bit, but we're going to do the pledge, and come on up.
So excited, Mr. Speaker. I'm so excited.
We gotta do the
So excited.
This was on the whim.
Please join Sophia in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Jump up here and say, I pledge allegiance. Do it. Together.
No.
And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Woo! Look at that over there. Thank you, everyone.
That was on the wrong side. Good job.
Thank you, Sophia. Mr. Shebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez, Burnett. Representative Burnett is excused. Byrd. Okay. Representative Byrd's excused. Bockenfeld. Basenecker. Bradfield. Caraveo. Carver. Catlin. Cutter. Doherty. Duran. Esgar. Exum. Froelich. Geithner. Rep. Geithner's excused. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Representative Gray is excused. Hanks. Rep. Hanks excused. Harrod. Holtorf. Hooton. Judah. Kennedy. Kip. Larson. Lindsay. Lontine. Representative Lontine is excused. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. McLaughlin. Michaelson Janae.
Present.
Mullica. Neville. Ortiz.
Here.
Pelton. Okay. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Roberts. Oh, Roberts.
Here.
Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. I think we have Tipper is excused today. Titone is excused. Valdez A. Oh, hey, sorry. Valdez D. Van Beber. Van Beber just walked in. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams. Woodrow. Woog. Young. And Mr. Speaker.
60 present, 5 excused. We have a quorum. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the spirit of fun and frivolity, I move that the Journal of Tuesday, March 22nd of 2022 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
I didn't hear the motion, but I trust that the motion was made because the front desk isn't looking at me. So the question before us is the adoption of the motion to approve the journal as corrected by the chief clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oh no, that was the worst side we've had in my 8 years here. All those opposed, no?
No!
Man.
No!
I'll look to the gallery. I think the gallery agrees with me. The ayes have it. The motion's approved. Announcements and introductions. Representative Herod.
Good morning, everyone. I have great news for you. Today we had Appropriations Committee this morning, and we have a joke winner. Let's say, the winner, it may have been a handicapped vote, but the winner this week is Representative Pico. Come on down. You guys, please just laugh. Just laugh, okay?
You could just grab
Just
that
laugh.
trophy. Grab that trophy on your desk. Come down here and yep. There you go. There you go, Representative Pico.
Okay, well, most of you know that I spent a few years at sea running around the world with sailors, and during that time I came to the conclusion that 3.14% of sailors are pirates, although I have been told that that number doesn't add up.
Just laugh. Come on.
Kept me thinking.
All right, and we do have another winner because today, as everyone can see on their desk, everyone is a winner. So Representative Benavides, come on down.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
I just wanted to let everyone hear this joke. This is a friend told me the best advice they ever got was not to criticize someone till you've walked a mile in their shoes, because that way you'll be a mile away and you'll have a new pair of shoes.
Yeah. All right. Representative Neville.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you noticed, but while I was cleaning out my coffee cup, I noticed in the kitchen there's some wonderful Colorado potato cookbooks. And so I never miss the opportunity to educate the chamber about potatoes. And so I just wanted to encourage you to take a look at this this cookbook here. There's some wonderful history. If you guys you weren't aware, you should be aware, but potatoes were originally grown in Peru, but it wasn't until the 16th century that Sir Walter Raleigh is actually the one who commercialized potato growing in Ireland. And there's some wonderful recipes on breakfast, appetizers, salads, potato soups, potato entrees, potato sides, and then fast and easy ones too. So I encourage you to take a look at this book and grab one for yourself. You know, potatoes are wonderful for our community, wonderful for Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Neville. And if you haven't watched the tape from years ago on potatoes in the well around a sunset, we can pull that for you. There's a lot of important educational material in that floor debate. Representative D. Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, members. Yes, today is Agriculture Day here at the Capitol, and we have some potatoes from the Worley and Matiti Farms and also the White Rock Farms for you. They're in the kitchen over here. Please grab a bag and take them with you, but also tell your family and friends and neighbors where they come from and how important potatoes are. And you just heard from Representative Neville about the cookbook, the potato cookbook, and how important it is. But also come down here and tell us your favorite recipe and how you cook your potatoes, because it is important as we continue to make sure where our food comes from and how important it is. So enjoy your potatoes, and thank you to our farmers and ranchers, not only in the San Luis Valley, but also in LaSalle, as they grow potatoes all over Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative D. Valdez. We could all come down and talk about our recipes, or we could create a caucus and do it offline. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you again today.
Honor to serve with you too today, Representative Catlin.
Thank you. I'm just down here to remind you that potatoes have only eyes for you.
Representative, let's go to Minority Leader McKean and then over to Representative McCormick.
Well, no thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how I can follow that. I start by washing my potatoes, and it's not because there's anything untoward there, just a little bit of sand and sometimes a little bit of dirt. I wash them thoroughly, often with a brush. And then when they're clean, sometimes I peel them, sometimes I don't. But I'm really not here to talk about potatoes. I'm here to talk about the legislative reception for the Wine and Spirit Wholesalers of Colorado. That's right. I'm talking about wine and spirit wholesalers. And the reception is tomorrow, Thursday, March 24th, 4:30 to 7 p.m. at the Art Hotel.
Representative McLaughlin and then Representative Van Beber. And then Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to serve with you. He's not even there, is he?
Honor to serve
I'm going to
with you too,
pretend I heard it.
Representative
I did. Thank you. Okay, House Education. We are changing again because change is good. On tomorrow, we are going to hear Senate Bill 137, 1280, and 1294. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. And none today. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin. Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the spirit of Ag Week, I would be remiss from Northern Colorado if we did not honor Potato Brumbaugh. It was a restaurant, it was a man, and he brought the first potatoes to the state of Colorado for us to enjoy. Eventually, it became my favorite anniversary spot to go dine at, but I will say thank you, Colorado farmers who provide us with one of our most favorite forms of starch, the potato.
Thank you, Representative Van Beber. Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we are continuing with Colorado Ag Week, as you might have guessed with all the potato talk. Today, we have a lunch in the West Foyer, which will be catered, and there'll be various short presentations from different commodity groups that you can listen in on, as well as a presentation by our Colorado Proud in the Department of Ag. And that is from 11:30 to 1, again in the West Foyer. Also, even more fun tonight is a happy hour with Colorado Wine. And that will be on the Spur campus over at the National Western Complex, and that is from 5 to 7. There'll be light appetizers and refreshments. And yet even more fun, tomorrow night, the Logan County Cattlewomen are inviting all legislators to participate in a steak dinner over at the First Baptist Church tomorrow night, Thursday the 24th, and that's at 6 p.m. So lots of great opportunities to eat and drink. So I encourage you all to participate.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I think you're starting to see a kind of a theme here. When we start having Ag Week and we start talking about agriculture, we start talking about food and food supply, have you noticed how everyone's spirits pick right up? Well, that's part of it. We have plenty of food. We have plenty of supply. We have what we want and what we need in Colorado. And this week is one of those times that you and I can recognize the people that are out there at the edge of town, quietly doing their job every day, every week, every year. They are our foundation. They're the people that are out there making these communities work. We need everybody, but one of the things I want to remind you is we need ag every day. Some of us more than 3 times a day. And I'm guilty of that. But I want you to understand, these are the kind of things that we, no matter what party we're in, no matter how political or apolitical, we can celebrate agriculture. Because agriculture is for us, by us. Say hello to a farmer, please.
Thank you, Representative Catlin. Representative Weissman's been waiting a long time. Representative Weissman, come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My humor is situational, so I'm going to skip the jokes. And if anybody wants my recipe for green chili mashed potatoes or rosemary oven roasted potatoes, just see me offline. But what I do have is an announcement about today's Judiciary Committee agenda. At 1:30, we will be in room 107, which is the room downstairs. We will hear 5 bills. They are as follows: House Bill 1258, Senate Bill 21, House Bill 1065, House Bill 1164, and House Bill 1300. See you at 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Weissman. Representative Wantine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Health and Insurance Committee meets this afternoon at 1:30 in our usual spot, room 112, and we will be hearing House Bill 1199 and House Bill 1236. See y'all there.
I have a quick announcement. Representative Burnett will replace Representative Ortiz on Health and Insurance Committee today only. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Transportation and Local Government. We have a long afternoon this afternoon, so everybody be on time. We're hearing House Bill or Senate Bill 141 and 142 and House Bill 1287 with Representatives Pico and Lynch and Valdez D and Representative Basenecker and Representative Hooten. Thank you.
Further announcements and introductions. Members, I think we have a tribute. Majority Leader Escar and Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we do have a tribute, and we ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Schiebel.
State of Colorado. The Senate and House of Representatives convened in the second regular session of the 73rd General Assembly hereby extends heartiest congratulations and commendations to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. On the occasion of IDD Awareness Day, we extend our recognition that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are defined by their strengths, abilities, and inherent value. With appropriate resources, services, and personalized support, they can make decisions for their own lives and contribute to their communities. Community living is a fundamental moral, civil, and constitutional right for people with IDD. IDD advocates, clinicians, researchers, policy analysts, community-based service providers, case managers, and direct support professionals work in partnership with people with IDD, parents, families, the legislature, and state agencies to strengthen the service delivery system so people can live productive, healthy lives in their community. We encourage all of Colorado to support their efforts and recognize this day of awareness. On request of Representatives Danae Esgar and Colin Larson, and Senators Rachel Zenzinger and Bob Rankin, given this 23rd day of March 2022, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed Stephen Fenberg, President of the Senate, and Alec Garnett, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members, thank you. Please, you can sit down. If you didn't know it, by now, you do now know that today is Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day. And you may have noticed that you each have an Oscar and a note on your desk about today's event. I think when we stop to think about it, most of us really know someone with an intellectual developmental disability or IDD, whether it's someone in your own families or your circle of friends, neighbors, colleagues. I encourage you to bring to mind someone who experiences life with autism, Down syndrome, Fragile X, cerebral palsy, or even any other disability. Today, thanks to awareness about the importance of inclusion, changing social expectations, and community-based services, people with IDD are more present than ever in our communities. They attend public schools, and they participate in the general education classroom. They work and volunteer alongside their non-disabled peers, and they even graduate from college. Today on IDD Awareness Day, we pause to acknowledge the inherent value and contributions of these individuals and raise awareness about their needs and desires. I don't think I have to tell you all that the past 2 years have been especially challenging for Coloradans with IDD, who already experience barriers to social inclusion, employment, and community access that have been significantly exacerbated by this pandemic. Even as we begin to return to normal, people with IDD continue to struggle with accessing needed services due to a severe workforce shortage among the direct support professionals who deliver in-person supports. Now, more than ever, we must renew our commitment as lawmakers to ensuring that community-based services are available to people with IDD when and where they need them. One way we can do this is to support a provision in the budget. I'll save that for another day. We must also commit to getting to know people with IDD and their families in our districts, your constituents, as well as IDD advocates and service providers. It's only through these relationships that we can effectively work on policies and improve their lives. I won't repeat the story I've shared almost every year that I've been here about the amazing folks that took care of my great aunt the majority of her adult life, and really the importance of these workers in her lives and everything that they did for her, not just physically taking care of her, but emotionally. They became her family. And that was more apparent to me than ever when, unfortunately, we were at her funeral. And the funeral was filled with people who had worked with her. These are people that take the commitment to serving folks with IDD very seriously. And I just want to say a huge thank you to them for their amazing service and work that they do every single day.
Representative Larson, and members, if we could please minimize the conversation on the floor and please direct your attention to the well. We have a tribute. Representative Larson.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, members, just to get down to the nitty-gritty a little bit about the IDD Awareness Day today, you may have all noticed, obviously, your Oscars on your desk. It is a red carpet-themed IDD Awareness Day this year. We are not having a traditional large luncheon here, but we're doing a large virtual event. So today, from 11:30 until 1 outside the old Supreme Court chambers. If you RSVP'd ahead of time, that's where your lunch will be. But we're also going to have a red carpet set up with a live camera crew and a live feed. You'll have an opportunity to come speak to providers in your community. We are expecting a fairly large attendance online for IDD providers and constituents all across the state and in your community. So stop by, give a little blurb, learn a little bit more about IDD providers in your area, connect with them. If you could stop by between 12 and 12:20 to give that little video response. But it'll be a great day today, and please do remember to come and join us today for IDD awareness.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I don't think there's a single one of you may not admit it, that has never dreamed about walking on a red carpet. Here's your chance today.
Indeed.
Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you guys for bringing this tribute. Many of you have met Colton. I used to be able to carry him to the well. Now I can't, but that's okay. Colton is now 11. Colton is the frick to my frack. He is 11 years old. He has Down syndrome. And if you know anything about kids with Down syndrome, you know that they live in the present. They don't think a whole lot about the past, and they don't plan a whole lot for the future, which is my ideal life, really, is where you just sort of stick right here. But if you ever have an opportunity, and that's why I came down today to say, if you ever have an opportunity to lay your busy life on the side for just a moment, go spend time with someone with an intellectual or developmental disability. Go spend time with someone with Down syndrome and be a part of their world for a while. I told this story last year. I will tell it again this year. A couple years ago, I went because Colton wanted to go on a treasure hunt. So we left the house, and off we went, and we walked around, and we asked. I thought maybe he was looking for a cool rock. He was not. We went, and we looked, and I said, is this the treasure? No, is this the treasure? And we got further and further away, and the sun was setting. And finally, he said, we got to go back home. So we turn around, we go back. A block away from the house, he stopped, and he started making shadow puppets in the light of the street light. And I said, what are you doing? He said, this, my treasure. Go, drink it in, enjoy that part of life that we don't get to enjoy every day. Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you, Minority Leader McKean. Are there further announcements or introductions? Seeing none, let's read committee reports of reference. Reports of committees of reference. Mr. Schiebel.
Committee on Appropriations. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1213, 1217 as amended, 1295 as amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Health and Insurance. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1290 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. Committee on Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1031 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. 1256 be amended as followed, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. Committee on Transportation and Local Government, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1253 be amended as followed, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Shebel. Majority Leader Esker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I move the following bills be made special orders today at 9:33 a.m. House Bill 1234, House Bill 1272, House Bill 1292, House Bill 1213, House Bill 1217, House Bill 1295, Senate Bill 76, and Senate Bill 105. And members, as always, keep in mind this is the order for now, but we may have to move things around as we go through our day. So please be flexible. Please pay attention. We'll have the screen up to make sure you know when your bill is coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. The bills listed by the Majority Leader today, Wednesday, March 23rd at 9:33 a.m. will be made special orders. Representative Titone. Seeing no objection, Representative Titone will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for the bill to be read at length. Committee reports are printed in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon the request, upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed, so take a load off. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1234.
House Bill 1234 by Representatives Bacon and Michelson Janae, also Senator Rodriguez, concerning establishing a preventing identity-based violence grant program.
Representative Bacon.
Thank you. I move House Bill 1234 and the Judiciary Committee report and Appropriations Committee report.
All right, great. Thanks to the Appropriations report.
Thank you. This bill asked for particular dollars for the grant program, and we got it.
All right. Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right. The Appropriations report is adopted. To the Judiciary report, Representative Bacon.
Thank you. In Judiciary, we talked a little bit about moving some language around so that it would be clearer to understand what the definition was of identity-based violence. And ultimately, we just added an amendment to move some words from lowering in a paragraph to further up in the paragraph so that it would read a little bit better. So I ask for an aye vote.
All right. Any further discussion on the Judiciary report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right. Well, the ayes have it. The Judiciary report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Bacon.
Thank you. Members, House Bill 1234, we feel is an exciting opportunity in a grant program to be administered by the Department of Public Safety to help us work with community organizations and law enforcement to root out identity-based violence. The grant program is around $1 million. And again, the priority is for organizations that receive the grant to do some work in the following, to meet the following goals, which is to build awareness for the prevention of intervention of identity-based violence, to strengthen local collaboration and capabilities for prevention and intervention of identity-based violence, and to build sustainable support for the prevention and intervention of identity-based violence. Again, the grant will be administered by the Department of Public Safety. I will also note that we had some great conversation in committee, and we do have an amendment for the bill.
Representative Michelson-Janae.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to thank my co-prime sponsor, Representative Bacon, for holding down the fort and working on this next piece that we're bringing forward. And I urge an aye vote.
All right, any further discussion on House Bill 1234? Representative Bacon.
Thank you. I'd like to move Amendment L5 and ask that it be displayed.
All right, Amendment L005 has been moved and is displayed. Representative Bacon, please tell us about the amendment.
Thank you. After discussion in committee, we noted that nonprofits, in being able to work with law enforcement, we just wanted to be sure that the nonprofits weren't able to use state dollars to do things that law enforcement couldn't do, which includes to gather intelligence information. And so we added it here to say that a grant recipient that is not law enforcement shall not collect or maintain intelligence information. So we thought it was important to note and to be clear about. The reference to the federal code here, which you can see is 28 CFR Part 23, this is what law enforcement has to abide by in regards to intelligence information, and so we said the nonprofit should be able, or should not be able to do anything that law enforcement couldn't.
Is any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Bachenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the amendment, but the amendment is toothless unless there's some penalty. Is there a penalty if this does occur?
Representative Bacon.
I would just say that the penalty is that they'd be in violation of federal regulation, and so just like any other organization or law enforcement organization that's in violation can go through those administrative processes and any legal actions that arise for violating federal code.
Representative Bachenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Even though you'll be hearing more from me on this particular bill, the amendment itself seems to have merit at face value, and I do support it.
All right, any further discussion on Amendment L005? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L005 to House Bill 1234, and all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, well, the ayes have it. Amendment L005 is adopted. Any further discussion on the bill? Representative Bacon.
Thank you, members. Again, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to talk about the things that we know lead to identity-based violence. We can also have the opportunity to support our communities in talking about each other, building relationships, talking about our different communities and how we can trust and support each other. This also provides a great opportunity for communities to work with law enforcement to be able to shine a light on the greatest parts of us, the greatest aspects of diversity, as well as figure out what are the things that we can look out for, be on alert for, to be sure that we can prevent these crimes. The last thing I'll say is that we were particular in saying that identity-based violence, even though we gave examples, it's not necessarily limited to your race, ethnicity, or gender. Department of Public Safety really wants to be able to support preventing mass events that take place because someone has an anger towards a particular group, or someone has an anger towards people who work at a particular place or go to a particular school, for example. And so we think it's really critical to begin to build those relationships in the community to help ourselves understand what we can do to prevent these crimes, as well as understand what we can do to prevent the behaviors that lead to these crimes. So I urge an aye vote on this bill. Thank you so much.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this bill is a very concerning bill. The bill's too vague. It opens the door to extreme abuse. It has a $1 million fiscal note annually. When you have a United States Attorney General who calls parents at a school board meeting terrorists, do we want to set up such a vague program that can be misused and abused? When we have high-tech companies who are backfilling political objectives in the last election, do we really want to set up a mechanism where they can use gifts, grants, and donations to achieve their objectives? That being the case, Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to offer Amendment L-004, and I ask for it to be displayed.
All right. Amendment L004 has been moved and is displayed. Please proceed to explain your amendment.
Thank you. What this amendment does is it strikes gifts, grants, and donations. I ask for an aye vote. That prevents outside...
Representative Bockenfeld, I think you may have moved the wrong amendment because this looks like it's a petition clause.
My apologies. It's got the... If I can have those back.
All right, would you like to pull back your motion for the amendment?
Yes, I'd like to pull it back. My apologies. I had two of them here and the tags got switched. I withdraw that motion.
Okay, the amendment has been withdrawn.
Okay, I'd like to move Amendment L-003 and ask for it to be displayed.
Okay, Amendment L003 has been displayed and is properly moved. Go ahead, Representative Bockenfeld.
Okay, what this amendment does is that strikes the gifts, grants, and donations that this particular grant program would make available, and I ask for an aye vote.
All right. Thank you, Representative Bockenfeld. Further discussion on the amendment. Representative Bacon.
Thank you, members. We believe that it's in alignment with grant programs to be able to accept any grants or gifts. We also know that we do have an appropriation for this bill, but ultimately we ask for a no vote on the amendment.
All right. Any further discussion on Amendment L003? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. All right, the amendment is lost. To the bill, Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. When this bill talks about a discernible population, it's pretty vague. Could a discernible population be school board members sitting up on a dais? When I look up the definition in a dictionary, I think so. So based on that, I'd like to offer Amendment L-004.
Can you
I'd like to move.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to move Amendment L-004 and ask for it to be displayed.
Okay, Amendment L004 is moved and displayed. Go ahead.
This particular bill has a safety clause. Why? Why is there a safety clause here? Is it really necessary to have a safety clause on a gifts, grants, and donation type bill? So I ask, through this amendment, that we strike the safety clause and we convert it to a petition clause.
All right, is there any further discussion on Amendment L004? Representative Bacon? Nope, Representative Bockenfeld.
Sorry, Madam Chair, and I ask for an aye vote.
Okay, Representative Bacon.
Thank you, members. I just want to point out something I said earlier. Even though, folks may feel like, for example, there is a term as bias-motivated crimes, this bill doesn't necessarily limit it to the same categories of folks that are identified in bias-motivated crimes. I mentioned earlier that we're looking a little bit broader, and again, the point of this grant is to be able to identify problematic behavior that might make people want to focus on harming people. This bill does not focus on identifying people and persecuting it. Rather, it does the opposite. It is a grant to work with community organizations to, again, build awareness, strengthen local collaboration, build sustainable support, and to train folks on how to find those types of behaviors that lead to a group of people being targeted for discernible identities. And so I would say that this bill does address, to some extent, I think we will also ask the Department of Safety to, or we have asked the Department of Safety in regards to particular identities. And again, their hope is to stamp out the type of behavior that brings people to hate a group of people because of those identities. So I don't think the bill does anything to identify and harm a group of people. Furthermore, if we're going to talk about crime, and quite frankly, to figure out how to prevent it, we should move with the utmost of haste, particularly when these types of crimes tend to lead to mass harm and mass casualties. So we do believe that it deserves a safety clause, and I urge a no vote on the amendment.
All right, any further discussion on Amendment L004? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. And the amendment is lost. Any further discussion on House Bill 1234? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1234 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. All right, the amendment passed. House Bill 1234 is adopted. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1272 until after House Bill 1217.
All right, upon the request of the Assistant Majority Leader, the bill will be laid over till after 1217. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1292.
House Bill 1292 by Representative Lindsay, also Senator Jaquez Lewis, concerning expanding the uses of money in the state dental loan repayment fund to include oral health programs administered by the Department of Public Health and Environment.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move HB 1292 and the Public and Behavioral Health Committee report.
Okay, to the committee report.
Okay, it's pretty simple. We just added a legislative declaration, and I ask for an aye vote.
All right. Any further discussion on the Public Health Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Public Health Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. All right, the ayes have it. The Public Behavioral Health Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L002 and ask that it be displayed.
All right, Amendment L002 has been moved and is properly displayed. Please proceed on the amendment.
This amendment is also very simple. It addresses the concerns of the Dental Association, and I ask for an aye vote.
All right, sending Representative Larson to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to come down and express my support for this amendment and express my sincere gratitude to Representative Lindsay for working with the Dental Association on this. It was in committee, heard some of the concerns about the integrity of the existing program that we're talking about here. Sounded like something that could be worked out, and indeed it was. So kudos to Representative Lindsay for great stakeholdering, and please support this amendment.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the bill sponsor for helping me close the rural-urban divide. And I'm going to explain to this esteemed body why. Because you see, out where we live, and I got to do this, I apologize just a little bit. We have a hard time getting doctors and dentists. Out in the hinterlands, in the frontier and rural areas of Colorado, places like Walsh, places like Hawley, places like Campo, places like Kim and Pritchett. I will tell you, places like Laird, Colorado, if you ever know or have heard of that little town. This particular program and the stakeholder work that Representative Lindsay did with respect to honoring the principle and the corpus of this program, which is to get dentists, get them trained, and help them go out in Colorado and working in places that may not be as populated, may not be as profitable, but this allows them to go out and serve the rest of Colorado and give them an incentive to do that through this loan repayment. So this is important. We talked about it after committee, and I am very excited about the amendment, so I'm a yes vote.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion on Amendment L002? Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This looks like a good amendment. It's something we can sink our teeth into.
All right, well, thanks for going with the puns there. All right, any further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Representative Lindsay.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. HB 1292 seeks to broaden the allowed uses of the Master Settlement Agreement funding for the state dental loan repayment program to also include other CDPHE oral health programs. In other words, this bill improves the oral health of rural and underserved kids by funding community programs. For instance, sealing little kids' teeth while they're at school to prevent them from getting cavities in the first place. So it's a good bill. Vote yes.
All right, any further discussion on House Bill 1292? Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to come down and offer support for this bill. I think it's really going to help rural Colorado. I've looked at it, and I did not hear it in committee, but I've had conversations about this bill, and I think it's really going to be beneficial to the rural parts of the state, so I'm in big support of it. Thank you.
All right, Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, in turn, know the value of this in rural Colorado. Most of you know the landscape in rural Colorado is very different than the concrete jungles of the big city or our suburbs. And this particular bill helps get dental care to the far reaches of Colorado. And I'm a big supporter of anything we can do to help the rest of Colorado as we serve as rural legislators. So thank you to the bill sponsor, and I'm a yes.
All right. Any further discussion on House Bill 1292? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1292. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right. House Bill 1292 is adopted. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1213.
House Bill 1213 by Representatives Young and Pico concerning the continuation of the regulation of speech-language pathologists by the Director of the Division of Professions and Occupations in the Department of Regulatory Agencies and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations in the Department's Sunset Review.
All right, hey, members, can we keep it down a little bit in here so we can hear the next bill? Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 22-1213.
All right, Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you as well.
We're talking about speech and language pathologists today and the sunset of their practice, but thankfully DORA has recommended that their certification and practice continue in this state. They are a group that has helped all Coloradans of all ages in the area of speech and language, but especially during the pandemic when they were responding to the needs of COVID patients after they were impacted by the use of ventilators. DORA, as I said, has recommended the continuation and made several other recommendations, so I urge and I vote.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we review the speech-language pathology, I think this is a good bill. This continues occupational therapy, and other than that, I'm a man of few words on this speech pathology.
All right. That's another good pun by Representative Pico. Any further discussion on House Bill 1213? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1213. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right. Well, the ayes have it. House Bill 1213 is adopted. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1217.
House Bill 1217 by Representatives Benavides and Bockenfeld concerning measures to prevent catalytic converter theft.
Representative Benavides. Representative Bockenfeld. Representative Benavides.
We'll get it right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 22-1217 and the committee report, the judiciary report, and the appropriations report.
Okay, to the appropriations report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, in appropriations, we made an amendment to the bill to change, instead of audits being done on the businesses, to do sort of a self-audit where they will be receiving a sort of questionnaire from the State Patrol, and they'll be able to decide learn about the new law if this passes and what it entails. So it changed the appropriation, but it was approved by the Appropriations Committee.
Okay, any further discussion on the appropriations report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the appropriations report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. The appropriations report is adopted. To the judiciary report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in the judiciary report, we had put those audits in place, which we used an amendment in appropriations to remove. So basically, the appropriations amendment wiped out the Judiciary Committee report. So I'd urge a yes vote.
All right. Any further discussion on the judiciary report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the judiciary report. All those in favor say aye. All right, heard one. Anyone opposed? No. All right, the judiciary report is adopted. Thank you for the yes. All right, to the bill. Representative Benavides.
Thank you. Members, this is a really good, important bill. You know, we talk about safety and we talk about crime, and this is one way that we can make a difference. This is has a companion bill, Senate Bill 22009, that'll be heard next week, and it's about catalytic converters. And if you're like me, you'd heard of them, but you didn't really know what they were. And I didn't until this past June, when my daughter's catalytic converter was stolen out of her car. She had no idea. She went to her car, she turned it on, and it made this terrible noise. She didn't know what was wrong, so she had it towed, and they figured out they had stolen her catalytic converter. Because catalytic catalytic converters are basically ways to decrease bad emissions that hurts our air quality. And so that's the real purpose of them. But if you get one stolen, it can be stolen in like a couple of minutes. People raise up your car, get underneath, cut it off, and they're out of there before you even noticed anything. And the other problem with catalytic converters is because this is a national issue. They imposed an 8-year warranty on catalytic converters. And so in our state, you have to have a new catalytic converter. So it takes a while to order a catalytic converter when you take it in to be repaired. And they're very expensive. They run from usually about $2,500 to $5,000 for a catalytic converter. So if someone has one stolen, especially if they don't have insurance, but even if they do, my daughter had insurance, she had to pay the deductible, but she was out of commission, her car, for roughly a month because they didn't have a catalytic converter to put in there. Luckily, she had rental insurance as well. So she was fine other than her deductible. And after she did it, she also put it's called a cage around it at the repair shop to prevent future theft of the catalytic converter. So that's the problem. And the way we're fixing this, in the companion bill, it's going to be put under something which is called the Commodities Metals Task Force. And that basically says the catalytic converters are under that because there's 3 types of metals within a catalytic converter, and one of them is the market rate is roughly $30,000 an ounce. So you can see how valuable these converters are and why they're stolen. So by putting it into the Commodities Metals Task Force and that recognition, then police can do something about it. Because without these bills, if a police officer stopped you, say for speeding, and you had 5 catalytic converters in your back seat, they couldn't do anything to you because those are just used auto parts. But putting them into the commodities metals, they can then arrest you and find out what happened. We also, in the companion bill, are putting a requirement to treat these like stolen property. You will probably all know how pawn shops, if you take something in to be pawned, they take your picture, they have to get all this information about you, just in case that was stolen. And so a comparable procedure will be put in place under Senate Bill 9. But this bill deals with how do we do with preventing it? And because people don't know, there will be a grant program set up. It'll be $1 million over 3 years, roughly $300,000 each year. And it'll go to like the emission stations, to auto repair shops, a small amount to law enforcement about education and prevention, those kinds of things to make people aware of the problem, and also to there's a way to engrave a VIN number on that, on your catalytic converter. So if you go in for emissions, maybe they can do that. But these grants will give them not to exceed $10,000 buy the equipment to be able to do that without having to charge you. So that'll cut down on the theft as well. And then it's the part I already talked about, having the self-audit that'll be done. And then if people aren't complying, the recyclers there's recyclers, processors, smelters in the chain of stolen catalytic converters. So we'll be addressing all of those. So this is a good bill that hopefully will reduce this crime and help people that are really faced with this, which can be devastating consequences of the theft of a catalytic converter. So I urge a yes vote.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been a great deal of stakeholder work that's been done on these 2 bills. And that's at the stakeholder table was the Auto Dealers Association, the State Patrol, and the Attorney General's office. I've spoken to all 3. They feel very strongly that this bill is placing some tools in the toolbox for law enforcement to get their arms around this issue, an issue that's been a huge problem in Denver, the city and county of Denver, in the city of Aurora, and with some recent discussions this weekend from some law enforcement folks in Colorado Springs. It's becoming more and more of an issue in Colorado Springs. We need to give our law enforcement officers and the State Patrol the tools to try to get this issue under control. It's not going to solve everything, but it is going to be a tool in the toolbox. So I'm going to ask for an aye vote.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do support House Bill 22-1217 and the bill sponsor's intent. But I want to talk about something to this bill because I don't think it goes far enough. It needs amendments, it needs more teeth, and it needs to help really solve the problem. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I think you all know. Organized criminals and organized crime are very smart. In fact, they're about 10 steps ahead of this legislative body. These criminals understand that soft on crime policies allow for more crime. And they are exploiting that. Imagine a few years ago when you never even heard about a catalytic converter being cut out of underneath a car. It wasn't a conversation we even had. We certainly didn't have it in this chamber, but now we do. Soft on crime policies cause more crime. Now, what are these criminals looking for? This bill for an act concerning measures to prevent catalytic converter theft. Let's talk about those chemicals, rather elements on the periodic table of elements. How about rhodium? How about platinum? How about palladium? You see, the criminals have figured it out. When we're soft on crime, criminals exploit that. And they are doing it in Colorado today. Now, this particular bill is a small measure to try to solve the problem. Well, I will tell you the money that we're putting in the fiscal note towards this looks like $410,000 based on the value of 1 ounce at 30, 10, 20 ounces. The criminals aren't going to stop. They're not going to stop doing what they're doing until they have a motivation to stop. Let me give you that motivation. Tough on crime policies. People that are arrested, putting the steps in place that if somebody does cut out a catalytic converter and try to sell the elements, that when they do get arrested, there are real teeth for their actions. Now, let me tell you the problem I have with this measure concerning the prevention of catalytic converter theft, because I don't think the criminals will be intimidated by this piece of legislation. It doesn't go far enough, Colorado, and it's not going to stop in Aurora. It's not going to stop in Denver. It's not going to stop in Colorado Springs. And I'm going to tell you why. It's called the economic motivation far outweighs the punishment. Now, a few years ago, we were talking about defunding the police. We were hindering the police departments and sheriff's departments. We were talking about how they were the problem. But now, a couple years later, we're asking for them to be part of the solution. I find that ironic, Madam Chair.
Representative Holtorf, are you talking about the bill here?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm talking about the measures to prevent catalytic converter theft. If we want to get serious, Colorado, about preventing measures, or actually putting in measures to prevent catalytic converter theft, then when a criminal is booked and charged, they can't be home for supper on a personal recognizance bond. They can't be home for supper on a cashless bail. And oh, by the way, if law enforcement hasn't retrieved that catalytic converter, those organized criminals have already passed that thing on. It is already smelted. And it has already been, the marketing process has already begun. So although I appreciate the intent of House Bill 22-1217 Colorado, this doesn't go far enough. We've done so many things over the last couple years to cause this problem that this bill is not going to even scratch the surface in solving it. So let's get tough on crime. Let's bring some amendments forth that make this a real bill with a real bite, Colorado. Because we can study the problem all we want, and the criminals will continue to hack and pull catalytic converters and peddle them. And oh, by the way, for those of us that live in rural Colorado, if you pull a handful of catalytic converters in Denver, you know how quickly you can be in another state to process those? Something to think about in this General Assembly.
Representative Buckenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to disagree with much with what Representative Holtorf said, but that's not the overall purpose of this particular bill. And I think that this bill helps get to the place that Representative Holtorf was articulating to, and that is to get to the folks that are doing this and be tough on them. And how do you do that? You do that by giving law enforcement the tools to track these folks down, and that's what this bill does. It's working with the smelters in order to find out where these catalytic converters are coming from so they can track them down. And when law enforcement starts busting more of these folks, there's a deterrent. And that's been the issue that we've had up to this point. It's not easy to track. Now here's the double-edged sword for you pro-business people. We could have come in here and put a heavy hand on smelters and small businesses that are involved in this, and we chose not to do that. We chose that we would write a bill so they could self-audit and be in compliance, and we give law enforcement the ability to come in and audit these smelters to make sure they're complying with the law, and not use a heavy hand which is going to drive up those businesses' expense. And if it doesn't work, we can always come back with a stronger, heavier hand if it's necessary. But this bill is doing exactly what my colleague wants it to do. It's the first step. It's not the solve-all. It's not going to prevent catalytic converter theft, but it's going to give our law enforcement community better tools to create an impact. And that's what we do. So, in all respects to the words from my colleague, I still ask for an aye vote on this bill.
All right, Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was a no in committee on this bill, but that was because it was referencing the substance of a Senate bill that, in a way that I was, I had heard it was going to be amended in the Senate. I needed to see the outlines of the Senate bill if 1217 was going to be tied to that. And so I was a no in committee. I have looked at the amendments on the Senate bill that were put on during second reading. I'm comfortable with that, so I am in support of 1217. Thank you.
All right, anyone else want to clear the air on House Bill 1217? All right, seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of 1217. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, well, the ayes have it. 1217 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1272 to the end of the special readings calendar.
All right, on the request of the Majority Leader, that will be laid over to the end of the calendar. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1295.
House Bill 1295 by Representative Sirota and Garnett, also Senators Buckner and Fenberg, concerning the Department of Early Childhood and in connection therewith establishing the duties of the Department of Early Childhood and the Executive Director of the Department relocating early childhood programs from the Department of Human Services and Education to the Department of Early Childhood and creating the Colorado Universal Preschool Program.
35.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1295, the Education Report, and the Appropriations Report.
Okay, to the Appropriations Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Appropriations, we had 3 amendments to address the funding mechanism for universal preschool to provide for a transition year for our school districts and community providers in the first year of UPK, and we addressed a funding source for local coordinating organizations. I have an amendment to the Appropriations Report, and I move L035.
All right, all right. Amendment L035 has been moved and is displayed. Go ahead and explain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. This just conforms to changes for 3- and 4-year-olds related to another amendment.
Okay, any discussion on Amendment L035? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L035 to the Appropriations Report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. All right, the ayes still have it. The amendment is passed. To the report. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a yes vote on the Appropriations Report.
Okay,
As
the
amended.
question, Representative Geithner. Is this the Minority Leader Geithner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we're doing the Appropriations Committee report, I'd like to move L036, and I ask for it to be displayed.
All right, L036 has been moved and is displayed. Assistant Minority Leader Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, members, what this does, with a large portion of the budget for the program coming from Proposition EE, of course, the department should be limited in raising budget beyond what Proposition EE revenue can fund within the first 5 years. And not have the ability to be backfilled by the general fund. So that's the purpose of this amendment. The public spoke very clearly through EE. They are willing to put forth that funding. And so this just says, hey, for the first 5 years that this department is in existence, that revenue stream should come from solely what the voters put into place, which is that revenue stream that was voted on through EE. And so that just makes sure that there isn't a backfill from the general fund, that the funding for the department is limited solely to what the voters put in place. And that's the purpose of L036, is just to honor the request, certainly of what the voters voted for in EE. And I would ask for a yes vote.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the thought, Representative Geithner, but actually, I think what that would do also would affect changes to the transition year. And I think that would actually make our districts worse off in terms of the funding amounts that they may ultimately end up receiving, and I'd ask for a no vote.
All right, any further discussion on Amendment L036? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L036. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed, no. All right, the noes have it. The amendment is lost. To the Appropriations Report, any further discussion? The question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the Appropriations Report is adopted. To the Education Report. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We made several amendments in House Education to address concerns from our K-12 friends, to address the Special Education Consortium, and to add a kindergarten readiness pilot program. I also have an amendment to the education report, L017, just to correct some drafting errors in the committee report.
All right, you've moved the
I moved
education report.
L017.
On the amendment, okay. All right, we have amendment L017. It has been moved and displayed. Please proceed. Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a yes vote, just a correction of drafting errors.
Okay, any further discussion on amendment L017? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the amendment is adopted. Back to the report. Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for an aye vote on the education report.
All right, any further discussion on the education report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the education report. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, the education report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a series of amendments here. We will start with L021. This is just also correcting some drafting errors in the bill and adds early childhood councils to provide input on the community plan with the local coordinating organization. So I move L021 and ask that it be displayed.
Okay, amendment L021 has been moved and is displayed. Please proceed and tell us about the amendment.
Thank you,
Representative Serota.
Madam Chair. Just some.
You said it already, so any questions on the amendment L021? All right, a question before us is the adoption of amendment L021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the amendment is adopted. Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L022 and ask that it be displayed. This amendment directs the department to differentiate guidelines and procedures where appropriate for rural areas. It provides some funding and technical assistance from the department prioritized for rural areas and has to do with some department best practices, posting it on website. This is all in our work to ensure we are fully supporting our rural schools.
All right, the amendment has been moved and displayed. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, this is a very important amendment. This reflects all of the work that we did with the Rural School Alliance, making sure that the resources and the personnel and the attention is given to our districts in different parts of the state. So I would urge an aye vote.
All right, any further discussion on amendment L022? Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so if the sponsors of the amendment could talk to the funding, certainly it looks like there might be an impact directly on funding, possibly an increase. Would like further explanation on the impact to funding, please.
Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I don't think that it's not going to actually impact the appropriation, but because there is already a large appropriation for support for local coordinating organizations and technical support. The bill provides for, I believe it's 10 FTE in this space. It's just ensuring that there is language provided in the bill to ensure that that there is a significant targeting toward our rural schools.
Representative Geithner.
So if I look at line 21, well, let's just read 18, that minor section there. The department shall prioritize communities, including rural communities that lack funding and capacity to receive the funding and supports described. I guess maybe the question is, if they're going to prioritize communities that lack funding, certainly it still reads to me that if they've identified that there's a lack of funding, there may then be a need to adjust funding in some capacity. I definitely read this as having a direct impact on funding and recognizing that there may be a lack of funding. So that's the reason for my concern. I'm just not convinced that this would not have an impact on the funding needed for the bill.
Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the lack of funding that is reflected in this amendment is actually referring to local dollars that would be used in terms of local coordination. There are also state funds that are appropriated in the bill to help address some local entities' lack of funding. And I ask for a yes vote.
All right. Any further discussion on Amendment L022? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm really happy that the bill sponsors, Speaker Garnett and Representative Serota, are considering rural Colorado. And they understand the importance and the economic climate that we have out in rural Colorado. I do want to point out one concern. I'm in favor of the amendment, believe me. In fact, I'm excited about the language in the amendment. And I do appreciate that, so thank you to the bill sponsors. I am concerned about funding, but here's the one thing I want to point out to this esteemed body. We have to have a vibrant rural economy. We have to support rural Colorado, because if we don't, we have to support those things that keep rural Colorado in the black, if you will, using a business term, profitable and prosperous. If we don't have that, then we don't have those local dollars. So think about all the policies that affect keeping local dollars in rural Colorado. And I know that's maybe a rhetorical question, but we have to do that part of it so we can in turn do this part of it, and then the local counties can in turn put their money on the table to help promote this program. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Amendment L022? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment 22. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L022 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L025. This is to address some unintended consequences of pupil counts for K-12 financing and mill levy override caps for districts. So this is in response to some of our districts that came to us, and I think we all found a good, happy place, and ask for your support on this amendment.
All right, any further discussion on Amendment L025? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L025. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the aye has it. Amendment L025 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L033, L033, and ask that it be displayed. This amendment increases the mill levy override limit for small rural districts to include money received from the Colorado Universal Preschool Program in addition to a total program.
All right, any further discussion on Amendment L033? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L033. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L033 is adopted. I heard. Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L029 and ask that it be displayed. This amendment clarifies that special needs children who are 3 and 4-year-olds must be funded all under the Colorado Universal Preschool Program. This is just some clarifying language for our K-12 and special education advocates.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, this, I think, reflects all of the conversations that we've been having with different stakeholders through this process. Again, an important an amendment, and I would urge the support of the body.
All right. Any further discussion on Amendment L029? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L029. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L029 is adopted. Representative Serota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L030 This also is an amendment in collaboration with our K-12 and special education advocates to ensure that it's just clarifying the per-child rates to be included, to include children with special needs who are 3s and 4s.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to slow down just slightly to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to review this amendment. I do want to thank Representative Sirota and all the stakeholders for their work on L030 and would urge the support of this amendment.
All right. Just everyone okay with the amendment L030? All right, looks like we'll no further discussion on amendment L030. So the question before us is the adoption of amendment L030. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the amendment is adopted. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L031 and ask that it be displayed. And I'll
All right.
talk slower.
Amendment L031 is moved and displayed. Please proceed.
Okay. So this is another piece related to special education and has to do with reporting on our 3s and 4-year-olds. Yeah, that's what it does. I ask for your aye vote.
All right. Is there any further discussion on amendment L031? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L031. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L031 is adopted. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L032 and ask that it be displayed.
All right, amendment L032 has been moved and displayed. Representative Sirota, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This establishes a minimum per-child rate for children with special needs who are 3 and 4-year-olds in the Colorado Universal Preschool Program.
Any further discussion on amendment L032? Just want to make sure there's no discussion on amendment L032. All right, seeing no discussion, question before us is the adoption of amendment L032. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L032 is adopted. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move my last amendment, L037, and ask that it be displayed.
All right, amendment L037 has been moved and displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is simply a conforming amendment to reporting special needs 3s and 4-year-olds in the student count to the Department of Education. And I ask for your aye vote.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on amendment L037? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L037. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L037 is adopted. Representative Sirota. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members. I do want to first say that we did kind of cruise through those amendments a little too fast, and this is a big policy. So I think there will probably be some discussion about that, but I just wanted to say that up front. First, let me just say, members, this is a very important piece of legislation. As a father of 3 children, 6, 3, and almost 9 months, I am right in the mix of watching the sponge of the developing brain move at such a pace that I fully understand the need and the benefit of high-quality early childhood education. It is so critical to Colorado's future, to Colorado's economy, to the future of our kiddos, and we are really taking a lead with the piece of legislation that's before you, unlike any other state in the country, it is complicated to navigate all the different departments and funding streams when it comes to accessing needed services. This bill will consolidate, will streamline, will make it easier for parents when it comes to accessing early childhood education. It will also fulfill our promise to the voters from passing EE to establish universal preschool for 4-year-olds. This bill should be the one bill all session that we hold up as promising the future of the state of Colorado, a bright workforce and a bright generation of kiddos that will help move Colorado forward. I'm so honored to work with Representative Sirota. You should all take a moment to thank her for her commitment to early childhood education. It started before she came to the legislature, but she has continued it, and it's an honor to be a sponsor on this bill with her. I also want to give a shout out to our drafter, Julie Pellegrin. I don't know if any of you have had the honor of working with her, but she is a gem to the state of Colorado. She's been working on education policy for a very long time, and if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be in a place to move forward in this way, and she deserves a lot of credit. So Julie, thank you for your service to the state. Thank you for your continued work on this issue, and thank you for your commitment to education. I hope as this dialogue continues, we can get your support on this bill. I believe that this is a very, very important step for the state of Colorado, and I'd urge your support on House Bill 1295.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I couldn't agree more with my co-prime sponsor, Speaker Garnett, about the tremendous work that has gone into the compilation of this bill, and just want to give a hat tip to Julie Pellegrin as well, who has really done an incredible job, but also gratitude to the incredible number of Coloradans who have come together to work on this piece of legislation. This bill will represent the codification of the unanimously approved recommendations from the Early Childhood Leadership Commission regarding the design of a new state agency and the implementation of universal preschool. We set that process in motion last year when we passed House Bill 1304, which set in place this incredibly robust stakeholder and transition process, which passed unanimously in the Senate and by 2/3 in the House, that set up that process that ultimately landed at those unanimously approved recommendations. And we all got here from the passage of Proposition EE in November of 2020, which voters passed by a 2-to-1 margin, which was the largest winning tax measure in Colorado since Tabor, just as a fun fact. So these conversations have been lengthy, they have been robust, they have been going on for 2 years, that have been inclusive of more than 130 meetings that were held with parents and families and members of the early childhood workforce, providers, school districts, counties, and advocates. And there were listening sessions. So it has truly been an honor to hear folks from every corner of Colorado give their input in the creation of this bill. It does 3 really important things, which is it establishes effective governance. As we are integrating these programs from different departments and offices to ensure that we have a streamlined department that encapsulates the programs that impact young children and their families all under one department, and ensures that families and providers are having an authentic voice in the direction of and the governance of the department. We're providing universal access and equity through a mixed delivery universal preschool program that will provide 10 hours of free preschool to every family with a 4-year-old in the year before kindergarten who wants it. And ensuring that our families can easily navigate this new system. Right now, they are having to walk through so many different doors, and this bill will set in place a process to create a single application access point. Again, all in the hopes that we are making life easier and more affordable for our families and our providers. who include our community child care and preschool providers, as well as our school districts. So thank you to everyone who has lent their voice to this process. It couldn't happen without everyone, and I ask for your yes vote and your support for the bill.
Assistant Minority Leader Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So members, and this is actually maybe a little bit more for those, the millions, of course, that are tuned in online. So 1295 is 485 pages, and we just moved 9 amendments in, I don't know, 20 minutes. I'm not even sure what the timestamp was. Pretty aggressive on such a piece of policy as thick as this. It's about a ream of paper, 500 pages. So that's quite concerning. There's other concerns that I think we're going to hear as we continue to debate 1295, but one that I want to put on the record outside of, right now, outside of, the length of the bill and the number of amendments that were just moved and the time in which we just moved those amendments, has to do specifically with the Information Technology, the Joint Information Technology Committee. The Department of Human Services actually carried forth a request. I think it was something in the neighborhood of about $16.9 million specifically for this new department. And the original request was 3 years. The Joint Information Technology Committee said, hey, you know what? Appreciate the request, basically, and this is me kind of abbreviating that or the information that was put out. But they said 3 years, your implementation plan isn't even fully built out. So we're going to approve at least the first year. And oh, by the way, not only the first year, but we're going to ask you to come back once every month so that we can make sure and have some more oversight on it. I look at 1295, I look at the number of amendments that we just ran here, not including the number of amendments that were run in committee, appropriation amendments, hearing from the Joint Technology Committee that they have some concern about a lack of an implementation plan and the process, intentional process laid into something of this magnitude.
Representative Geithner, can I interrupt you one moment? It's getting a little loud in here, members. Can we keep it down a little bit so we can hear Representative Geithner? Thank you very much. Sorry, Representative Geithner.
And so I have grave concerns at the speed at which we are moving on 1295. I'll yield back to, I know I have another colleague that wants to make some comments as well, but as we dive into this, members, I think this is a piece of policy, a significant piece of policy, and the speed at which we're moving through with amendments in about 20 minutes, 9 of those or so. I just have grave concerns at the pace at which this is moving, because clearly there are other departments within the state that are also have some concern as well, and I just wanted to make sure that those were highlighted. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I echo the comments by my colleague here, and I want to point this out. I mean, this is 480 plus pages here, and we did go through several amendments. I actually think it was more than 9. I think it might have been 11 or so. Significant amendments, and I don't begrudge the bill sponsors, because I know how this place works, and I know so often stakeholding, is a process that we have to go through to help ensure that we get the bill to a good place before thirds. But with that said, I still think, my concern about all this is that, I didn't even finish reading the bill, quite frankly. And now that we have all of these changes that were in it, I have to go back through what I've already read, and that's sort of an issue for me. And I would say that's not the best or most ideal lawmaking that we can do in this. And so, and by the way, I just want on a personal note, this is nearly 500 pages, so it's actually quite tempting given my history, but I won't. I won't. I don't want to take up the committee's time here. But with that said, Mr. Speaker, and of course Representative Sirota, I do want to have this discussion, and no disrespect at all, but I do move that we lay this bill over one day, just so that I can have time, and the rest of my colleagues can have time to digest what happened here, because 20 minutes is not enough to really digest the amendments that were passed. So I do move that we lay this over one day at least. And I look forward to the discussion on why or why not we shouldn't do that.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I I understand and appreciate where my colleagues are coming from. Sometimes, in all of the preparation and work to come to the floor, especially when you're thinking about establishing a new department and you're talking about bringing programs in and trying to streamline services, a lot of our focus was on was working with the stakeholders in which we're touched by this bill, and making sure that we were being thoughtful about where they were coming from, and making sure that as we move forward towards implementation, that the legislation is as fine-tuned as it can be. And sometimes when you go through that process, it is sort of standard procedure here in the well to kind of rattle through those amendments so you can reflect to the people that you've been talking to who aren't necessarily inside here the commitment that we have made to make this the best bill possible. And I understand that frustration, and I want to make sure that we highlight that. In terms of the motion of laying the bill over one day, I would urge a no vote on that particular motion. Those procedural motions are usually made by the majority leader. I understand some of the concerns on the pace, and I'm certainly sensitive to that. It was important. I think it's important to note for the stakeholders that we worked with, the commitment, and that's why we kind of moved those amendments at the beginning. And with there's no nefarious conduct or anything that we're trying to hide in that, but I understand the concerns on the pace. And then I just want to highlight one other thing for the additional stakeholders who we are continuing. There's just, again, this is an opportunity for me to say, my door remains open as we continue to talk through this bill. But in terms of laying the bill over one day, I would urge a no vote, but I do want to be thoughtful and respectful to the concerns raised by my colleagues.
Assistant Minority Leader Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I rise in support of the motion. Members, I think it's also important to note that during committee, one of my colleagues from the other side of the aisle who's on Education Committee actually said that he hadn't had time to finish reading the bill either. So this isn't just a one-sided concern. This isn't just concerns from the Republicans or my side of the aisle. There was, at least an expression that there wasn't enough time in order to completely read the bill during our time together in committee. So I do urge a yes vote on the motion that we just had made, and would appreciate the support in the motion that was made.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Speaker, I just want to go ahead and I really do commend you, because I think you do some of the best stakeholding and lawmaking in this building. Despite our differences on policy, I still think you're one of the more thoughtful legislators. So I just want to reiterate here that I don't think there's any sort of malicious intent or anyone trying to hoodwink the minority or anything like that. But just in terms of process and how we do things around here, I would think it's appropriate that we hold off at least a day on this because there were significant changes. It was reported to me that in committee that there were members on both sides, of the aisle that really didn't have enough time to digest even what was originally put in place with the bill as it was written. What we do and how we do this matters, right? It's not just the product we put out, but it's how we go about putting it out that is important. I think at the very least, laying over this bill is appropriate. Quite frankly, if we were to refer it back to committee, that would be appropriate. But given all the stuff that we have to balance here in terms of the calendar, laying this over one day to allow the minority and even members in the majority to actually read this bill as it was changed is more than appropriate. It's more than reasonable. And if we can't do that, then I'm concerned that this process is flawed. So I would reiterate my call for a yes vote to lay this over.
All right, Representative Ransom.
Thank you. And members, I also want to speak in support of laying this bill over. This is a massive bill. I'm sure you've seen printed copies of it. It's a couple inches thick. It will be some pretty huge policy changes in our state. And when we were in Appropriations Committee this morning, there were two L amendments added. One of them was quite short, and the policy was mild enough that I understood the amendment right away and supported it and voted yes. The other amendment was several pages long. The other L amendment added policy, and of course it was passed in appropriations this morning because of some type of fiscal impact. That being said, we've just added 11 more amendments, most of which were a full page or close to it. Clearly, they couldn't have been grouped together because of the multi-page amendment rules that we have. And so they were done one by one. And I was actually sitting at my desk trying to follow what each amendment was doing. And I am grateful to the sponsors that explained, for example, one was for the rural schools. And I understood that piece, but it was moving fast. 11 pages is, and some of them were spread throughout the bill. So I do want to speak in favor of laying the bill over. Just so you know, I have requested a new fiscal note just because there have been so many changes to this bill. I think there will be some impacts fiscally that we as a body here need to take into account. So one more time, I just urge an aye vote on the motion to lay this over. Let us please see the bill. I won't need a printed copy with these amendments put in. I'm happy to do that online. But if the amendments can be folded in so that we can see what the bill currently does to the state and to the budget and to the entire new department that we're adding, I think that would be beneficial for all of us to cast a vote that is educated and informed and not just based on the size of the bill or what the title of the bill is or the summary, but that we can actually digest the bill. Most of us, I think, try hard to understand the policy that we're voting on, and I think that giving us a day or two to go over the policies within the bill would be helpful. So, members, please vote yes on the motion.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Luck.
Actually, no, never.
Okay, all right. She didn't want to do it. All right. The question before us is the motion to lay over the bill one day. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. No. The noes have it. The motion is lost. Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to add on to the comments that Representative Williams made. This is a huge bill, and some of my other colleagues take a look at it. But those amendments really did kind of rewrite a major portion of this bill. It's a different bill than what was seen before, and trying to sit there and read through this on the screen, I appreciate that we didn't have the trees killed to give us all that ream, but it certainly sucked up a lot of bandwidth just kind of trying to page through 500 pages. But trying to decipher and incorporate each one of those amendments into that bill as they came up. Most of us didn't see this until this morning, the amendments. So I move that this bill go back to the committee of reference, to the Education Committee, give them a chance to review this again, and then have it come forward again. It's a new bill, and I think it deserves the attention. We have the time. This is not this far through the session. We have time to do this right, and I make that motion.
Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I heard some comments about the Joint Technology Committee, and thank you for paying attention to what the Joint Technology Committee is doing, because that's really nice of you to do. But we at the Joint Technology Committee did say that we wanted to put some extra attention on this project, but this wasn't because of this project. It was because these are any large project with lots of money we want to have oversight on, because there has been problems in the past with large IT projects. It has nothing to do with the topic or the subject of the IT project. It's about the size of it and making sure that our taxpayer money is spent in the right way, and that oversight you should be very happy about, that we're not giving the money out until we see the results. And in an agile process, we see demos and not memos about projects, and that's what we wanted to make sure that the project was going smoothly. So that's all I wanted to just make sure that point was clear. The Joint Technology has nothing against this project for the merit and the subject that it has.
Representative Embeber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't come to this well lightly as an educator. With over 20 years of experience, pre-K through college, I would implore my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to stop for a moment and think about the magnitude of what is being laid on your desks today. The equivalent of one of the larger novels we'd probably like to spend our summer reading. Hundreds upon hundreds of pages have been set before you, and multiple amendments have been applied to that. I am asking that we do the obvious, the common sense thing, the right thing when we make sausage here and run legislation, to ensure that we are not putting something into place that would harm the most tiny people that we say we want to help. That we would not put something into place where we don't have an understanding of what it looks like to have processes implemented and executed on the heads of our children. Do the right thing and send this bill back to committee for a deeper review. We will be answering to our voters, to the people that put us in these seats, if we do not do our due diligence in ensuring that this particular topic is in our laser sights, that it's clear, intelligible, understandable. It should be nonpartisan. This is an easy decision. To say that we can't take 24 hours, just one day, to do the right work, and I don't want to impugn anyone's motive, but I am saying this very clearly. To take one day is the right thing to do. To either give us time to look at this in a more deep capacity, or at the very least do an even better thing and send this bill back to committee so it becomes a cohesive document that we are able to digest for our children.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1295? Representative Sirota, Representative Baisley, Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're still on a motion, so
No, we did the motion, and the motion failed.
to send it back to committee.
Oh, for back to education. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Representative.
Yep, and I'm just asking for a no vote on the motion. I appreciate the concern, and I am happy to talk slower through any of the amendments that we added today. I think on the whole, they were mostly just clarifying amendments, from all of the lawyers who have collaborated and talked, and ensuring that our rural schools, our districts, our CFOs, that everybody feels confident that the bill is doing what everyone is intending to do. And this is part of the process, and we're still somewhat early in the process. This is second reading. It has a whole other chamber to move through as well. And I ask for a no vote on the motion.
All right, Representative Pico to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I assure you I don't need anybody to read it slower. What I need is to have those amendments refolded back into the bill in the Education Committee to relook at what is essentially a new bill. That's what I need. I'm not that dumb that I need it read slowly.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Chair Tatone. I would just like for anybody who's watching this to understand the time frame that we're working under. So this bill was initially introduced into the legislature on March 11th. It is now March 23rd. It was heard in committee on March 17th. It is 485 pages. So if you broke it up just to be able to read it by today, that's approximately 40 pages that you're reading every night and trying to dissect. So for those who might be concerned about us on the floor not doing our job, not reading properly, recognize that this is a substantial amount of information just to read, much less digest, process, stakehold, and otherwise ensure is good policy. And so I also rise in support of this motion. Thank you.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will also just, again, bring it back to the incredible work of our drafter. And if you look in the bill summary, it is a helpful reference point for finding where all the pieces are in the bill. And part of the reason that the bill is 485 pages is because we are moving the Office of Early Childhood from the Department of Human Services to the new department. And so there are literally hundreds of pages of conforming amendments that are not actually doing anything other than moving something in statute.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And when the bill first came to the floor and speeches were made by the sponsors of this bill, they said they hoped that they could get everyone, or most everyone, to a support. There is absolutely no way to get this to a support when you have offered more than 10 amendments that were a page long. And for those of you that are watching, when they flash up on the screen, they're only there for a moment, and then we get maybe like a 2-sentence synopsis of what that amendment meant. We don't get hard copies of it all across this room and then get to vote on those. It is not unreasonable to refer this bill back to the Education Committee. If you look at this fiscal note, and we're going to get a new one because of all of the amendments, but this one right here should scare you enough. It's not unreasonable to have this bill go back to the Education Committee. I support the motion.
Any further discussion on the motion to refer to education? A division has been called. All right, the question before us is all right, well, we'll just take a brief recess right now. The committee will come back to order. The question before us is the motion to refer House Bill 1295 to education. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of the motion to refer back to education, please stand and remain standing, or raise your hand if you're on the board and keep your hand raised until it is taken. Okay, you may be seated. All those opposed to referring House Bill 1295 to education, please stand, remain standing in one place, or raise your hand until the count is taken. All right, thank you. You may be seated. The motion is lost. To the bill, Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to talk about the funding of this bill. So reference has been made frequently, even you've heard it this morning from the sponsors, that this came from Proposition EE that was passed by the voters in 2020, so 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. And that's the source of the funding for this 495-page bill. Well, we all hear constantly about what's called the budget shortfall factor. We abbreviate that to the BS factor quite a bit, and that's brought up constantly. Budget stabilization factor. Thank you, Representative Gray. And it is the shortfall. It is the amount of money that we have not come through as a state to properly fund, to fully fund our public schools as required constitutionally. And that remains as a debt that's brought up constantly for us. And we would all like to catch up on that. And Proposition EE is the opportunity to do that catch up. Now, I polled my constituents and asked them if they recall passing a bill that would fund early childhood and universal kindergarten. I got no one saying, oh yeah, I remember voting on that bill, but they do remember voting on a tobacco and nicotine tax bill. So that is the beginning of this, and I'm going to read what was on the ballot that everyone voted on. Here is the source, and it's a bit wordy, about 100 words for the source of the funding. Shall state taxes be increased by $294 million annually by imposing a tax on nicotine liquids and used in e-cigarettes and other vaping products that is equal to the total state tax on tobacco products when fully phased in, incrementally increasing the tobacco products tax by up to 22% of the manufacturer's list price, incrementally increasing the cigarette tax by up to 9 cents per cigarette, expanding the existing cigarette and tobacco taxes to apply to sales to customers from outside of the state, establishing a minimum tax for moist snuff tobacco products, creating an inventory tax that applies for future cigarette tax increases, and initially using the tax revenue. And I'll stop there. But it's all this, the taxation, the point of this first half of this Proposition EE is that the revenue comes from taxing tobacco and nicotine products. Constituents remember that. Say, we're good with taxing that for something useful like education. So, this is the purpose of the taxation. After describing that it's coming from all of those sources regarding tobacco and nicotine, it says, and initially using the tax revenue primarily for public schools funding to help offset the revenue that's been lost as a result of the economic impacts related to COVID-19. The budget shortfall stabilization factor is currently at $503.3 million. I recently checked that. So we're down by $500 million, but the funding coming from the taxation is $294 million. So within a couple of years, we could, if we focus the majority of that, as the bill says, as the Proposition EE says, we could knock down that budget stabilization factor. But I want to point out that in Proposition EE, which reflects the will of the people who voted to pass this bill, it says that the tax revenue is to be primarily used for the public school funding, and then for programs that reduce use of tobacco and nicotine products, and then to enhance the voluntary Colorado preschool program. So the Colorado preschool program is in here, but it's item number 3 after we satisfy funding public schools and educate the youth on not using tobacco and nicotine products. So diving directly into funding, excuse me, directly into funding the Colorado preschool program is not respecting the will of the voters. It is creating a whole new program before we have paid off the one that we owe. So towards that, Madam Chair, I move L038, ask that it be displayed.
All right, Amendment L038 has been moved and is displayed. Representative Baisley, go ahead and explain your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what this will do would be to respect the will of the people as they voted, as they expressed in Proposition EE, which is, again, is cited as the source for funding for the Colorado preschool program, but to respect their wishes in Proposition EE to first pay off the budget shortfall, the budget stabilization factor, which can be done with that $294 million annually. And then we get to 2 steps later, as is in Proposition EE, we get to Colorado preschool program. But the will of the people is that we pay down, and I'm going to read it again, that tax revenue is primarily for public school funding and then for programs that reduce the use of tobacco and fund or enhance Colorado preschool program. It doesn't even say fund, it says enhance the voluntary Colorado preschool program. But funding is first, is primary, and then we move on. That's what the people remember. That was their will at the time that they voted to tax tobacco and nicotine, to fund the schools appropriately, and then we can do these other things. So I ask for a yes vote because this amendment would ensure that we prioritize according to the will of the people expressed when they passed Proposition EE 1.5 years ago.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a no vote. The will of the people was that Proposition EE would establish a universal preschool program for the state of Colorado, and that is what they asked for.
Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, the taxation comes from tobacco and nicotine products, and the words that the people voted on said, and initially using the tax revenue primarily for public school funding, and then for programs that enhance the voluntary Colorado preschool program, and then, and we owe first $503.3 million to public schools. We either need to fund it through the will of the people as expressed in EE, or we have to stop talking about catching up on the BS factor, on the budget stabilization factor. One of the two, but we cannot ignore the will of the people and then continue saying, oh, but we owe that money because they gave us the avenue to pay that down. So we should respect the will of the people as they expressed in their vote, or at least stop saying that we owe that money.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the EE, that money that went to K-12 education was initially directed toward K-12 education, knowing that when universal preschool began in 2023, that is when we would start funding that program with EE, and there was a little bit of transition money there too, but it wasn't that, we would initially turn on this increased tax and then all of a sudden this money would start flowing to a program that didn't exist yet. So it had to do with an on-ramp.
Representative Baisley.
The amount of money so far paid out, I have the figures here. $102,086,469 everything that has been paid out of funds from Proposition EE. And recall the total funding targeted from Proposition EE is 3 times that. 102 million out of the 294 million annually, and to primarily go to schools, as the bill says, we're only a third of the way there. It's not time to start funding a new program until, according to the will of the people, and then for programs, first primarily for public schools, and then. So I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Van Bebber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to support Representative Baisley's intention here. When we look at what the will of the voter wanted in this legislation, when it came to how they want their tax dollars spent, it was stated funding goes to K-12 education first. And when we look at the 2019 standardized test scores right here in the state of Colorado, in between 3rd and 8th grade, none of our children were 50% proficient, even just 50% proficient in language arts or math, 2 of the most critical skills necessary for the survival of our children. And we are splitting hairs over language that is not meant to be parsed. It is in black and white. And we either come to this chamber and as legislators do what we say we're going to do by the will of the voter, or we don't. Not 50% proficient in any grade level. Put some faces with some names. Those are children numbered in the hundreds of thousands here in the state of Colorado. Funding them must come first. There is no doubt about it. Our children, in their youth, in their innocence, in their age, developmentally between birth and entering kindergarten, are no doubt about it, absolute sponges when it comes to the amount of knowledge they are receiving, the amount of information they are processing, the amount of experiences they are interpreting in order to thrive. But I will go back to those numbers that we have to pay attention to. Not 50% proficient. It has gotten so bad, we have quit giving the science standardized tests. We have quit giving the social studies standardized tests because we can't even gain ground where it belongs in the two most critical subjects.
Representative Beber, are you sticking to the amendment right now?
I am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Because this amendment is about ensuring that we follow what the voters have asked, which means we commit to funding K-12 education first and foremost.
All right, any further discussion on Amendment L038? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L038. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, the noes have it. The amendment is lost. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I just want to reflect on the some of the process concerns that were raised by my colleagues on timing. And we've been talking, the sponsor and I, with our colleagues, and I have encouraged the Assistant Majority Leader to lay over the bill one day to be respectful of some of the things that we've heard. So I just wanted to say that on the mic. Thank you for the continued dialogue, and I would support that motion.
Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, because I think this is where we work the best, is to say we have some concerns here. Let's just take a look at them, make sure what the effect we've had on the bill really is from everything that we've seen rolling through. So thank you very, very much.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just say I think the proper motion is to lay it over as amended. But we should probably, I don't know if we voted on this amendment, but we should probably vote on this. Okay, great. But we should, I think the motion would be to lay it over as amended.
Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1295 as amended one day.
Okay, hearing the motion, any objections? Seeing none, the bill will be laid over as amended one day, per the Assistant Majority Leader. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 76.
Senate Bill 76 by Senator Holbert, also Representative Mullica, concerning complaints related to a person's authorization to practice an occupation for acts committed while the person is serving in an official capacity.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, it's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you as well.
Madam Chair, members, this bill is a bill that is near and dear to my heart. What this bill does is make sure that if there is a complaint filed against one's license, if it's doctor, nurse, architect, whatever it may be, and that complaint is based off of something you said is serving as a board member or as an elected official and has nothing to do with your actual practice of medicine or your actual practice of taking care of somebody based on your license, that complaint can't be used against you. And so, I think we've seen a little bit of that with politics on both sides, where the system can be abused, and we want to make sure that that complaints are based on your actual, if you've done something to harm somebody in your actual capacity in your license, not based on your political speech. And so I'd ask for a yes vote.
Representative Ransom.
And thank you, sponsor, for bringing this bill before the House. I actually knew some of the beginnings of this bill, at least from my end of it, from someone in my district who serves on one of the boards in my county, and she was challenged with some of the statements she made as a volunteer on that board. And we don't want to have a chilling effect for people that volunteer in our communities, in our counties, in our towns, in our cities. And with that, I do support this bill. I think that it was a great idea to encourage people to do the volunteer work that they can. And once again, I want to thank the sponsor for the bill, and I urge an aye vote.
All right, any further discussion on Senate Bill 76? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 76. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no? All right, the ayes have it. Senate Bill 76 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 105.
Senate Bill 105 by Senator Donovan, also Representative McLaughlin, concerning an annual address by tribal representatives to a joint session of the General Assembly.
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 22-105 on second reading.
All right, to the bill.
Yes, this is a bill that is to be inclusive, and this asks the Senate President and the Speaker of the House to every year invite members, representatives of our two tribes in Colorado, the Southern Ute and the Ute Mountain Ute tribes, to come and address the Assembly. They do not need to have to ask to do this. We want to include them as a very, very important governmental entities of Colorado. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 105? Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that this is a great bill, and I appreciate that you brought this forward. I think that it's very important that we recognize our Ute Indian tribes that are here in Colorado, and that we do hear from them annually here in the legislature. So thank you for bringing this.
All right, any further discussion on Senate Bill 105? Representative McLaughlin? No. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 105. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say no. I didn't hear it. So the bill is passed. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1272 one day.
All right. House Bill 1272 will be laid over if there's no objections to one day. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
All right. You have heard the motion. If there's any objections, the committee will rise and report.
Won't. The House will come back to order. Mr. Shebo, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole. Representative, you need to read it first. Go ahead.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report has under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1213, 1217 as amended, 1234 as amended, 1292 as amended, passed on second reading in order, engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 76, 105 passed on second reading in order, revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1272, 1295 as amended, laid over until March 24th, 2022.
Thank you. Representative Titone. You have all heard the motion. There are 3 amendments at the desk. Mr. Shebo, please read the amendment, the first Bockenfeld amendment.
Representative Bockenfeld moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Bockenfeld Amendment L003 to House Bill 1234 to show that said amendment passed and that House Bill 1234 as amended passed.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the first Bockenfeld Amendment, and I ask that it be displayed.
I think it's displayed.
As I said previously, this bill is dangerous because of how vague it is, and it is susceptible to extreme misuse and abuse. When we have high-tech companies who got so financially heavily handed in the last general election, do we really want to accept gifts, grants, and donations? What this amendment does is it strikes the provision for gifts, grants, and donations from the bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the first Bockenfeld Amendment to the committee. There is further discussion. She wasn't in the well. She snuck up on me. Representative Bacon.
Yes, I just wanted to encourage, again, from what we shared through discussion, that we vote no on the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look around this time. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? No. Seeing none, the question is the adoption of the first Bockenfeld Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and the members proceed to vote. Okay. All right. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Is that? I thought I did. I voted wrong. Okay. Jeez. All right. Representative McKean? All right. Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 39 no votes, 21 aye votes, 5 excused, that amendment fails. All right, we have a second Bockenfeld amendment. So, Representative Bockenfeld. Oh, please read the amendment, Mr. Shebo.
Representative Bockenfeld moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Bockenfeld Amendment L004 to House Bill 1234 to show that said amendment passed and that House Bill 1234 as amended passed.
Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the second Bockenfeld Amendment and ask for it to be displayed.
It is displayed.
Thank you. What are we afraid of? There's no need for a safety clause on this bill. Give the people who we represent a voice on this bill. How about some government transparency? This amendment removes the safety clause and replaces it with a petition clause. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Bacon.
Thank you, members. Just want to reiterate, urging a no vote on this. I think we need to get to the safety of our neighbors as soon as possible.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the question is the adoption of the second Bockenfeld Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. All right. Please close the machine, Mr. Shebo. With 26 ayes, 35 noes, 4 excused, the amendment fails. We have one more amendment. It's the Baisley Amendment. And Mr. Shebo?
Representative Baisley moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Baisley Amendment L038 to House Bill 1295 to show that said amendment passed and that House Bill 1295 as amended was laid over one day.
Thank you. Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move the Baisley Amendment.
And it is displayed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. So remember this amendment would say that we are going to respect the will of the people by prioritizing the funding to public schools as was in Proposition EE prior to funding anything else such as early childhood. So please join me in voting yes on this amendment. Otherwise, let's please stop talking about the budget shortfall. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Yes. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I ask for no vote.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the Baisley Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebo, please open the machines and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. Oh, wait. Well, closed it? Neville votes yes. Is your machine not working, Representative Neville? Okay, so you vote So he's voting yes. Close the machine, Mr. Shebo. All right. With 24 ayes, 37 noes, 4 excused, that motion fails. There are no further amendments. There are no further amendments on the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 41 ayes, 20 noes, and 4 excused, the Committee of the Whole report passes and is adopted. Right? Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate amendments to House bills.
You've heard the motion, see no objections. Then we will proceed out of order. And the first one is 1028? Yeah. Is House Bill 1028. Representative Gray. Oh, Mr. Shebo, please read the title to House Bill 1028.
House Bill 1028 by Representatives Gray and Hooton, also Senators Winter and Priola, concerning statewide regulation of persons approaching controlled intersections who are not operating motor vehicles.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. The amendments that have been made are disgusting and inappropriate, and therefore I move that we concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1028.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Gray, you want to talk again?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. As best I can, in shame. What was added was some clarifying language in a couple places, and there are, we gave some local control for certain intersections for folks who are 14 and younger, as when they are signal controlled intersections. So like red light, green light, that sort of thing. There are guardrails on that, but that was added in the Senate, and we have reluctantly and with great hesitation accepted that as an idea, and so ask for your concurrence.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 58 ayes, 3 noes, and 4 excused, that motion is adopted, and HB 1028 is amended. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1028 as amended.
You've heard the motion. Please vote. Open the machine. And members, please vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rep. Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 42 ayes, 19 noes, 4 excuse, that motion passes and House Bill 1028 is amended. And go. Co-sponsors. Is there any co-sponsors for this? Co-sponsors? Anybody on the wall want to co-sponsor? Nope. All right, let's close the machine. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 221104.
House Bill 1104 by Representative Basenecker, also Senators Priola and Bridges, concerning public recreational trails and electric transmission corridors of the state and in connection therewith, encouraging transmission providers to enter in written agreements for the construction maintenance of power line trails and requiring transmission providers to provide informational resources and notify local government regarding the potential for power line trails and planning for the expansion or construction of transmission corridors.
Thank you, Mr. Shebo. Representative Boysenecker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. It is with deep sadness, abiding regret, and some shame mixed in there as well that I move that the House concur to Senate amendments to House Bill 1104.
Could you please explain the amendments, Mr. Representative Boysenecker?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. So in the Senate's infinite boredom, I mean wisdom, what they did was they added on some considerations, important considerations, all joking aside, around grazing, wildlife impacts, potential liability for public and private landowners, and then also some language that calls out considerations regarding public lands. These are good fixes that strengthen the bill, and I do support them.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendments on House Bill 1104. So, Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Cutter? Cutter? Doherty? Cutter? Cutter? Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. Majority Leader Escar. Oh, I need to call the vote. The vote is 54 ayes, 7 noes, and 4 excused. That amendment passes. The concurrence? House concurrence with Senate amendments pass. Majority Leader Escar and gavel. Now, Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm a slow learner.
I move for the repassage of House Bill 1104 as amended.
You've heard the motion. If there's no further discussion, the question before us is the repassage of House Bill 1104. Mr. Sheba, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Mr. Sheba, please close the machine. With 37 ayes, 24 noes, and 4 excuse, that motion passes. And we'll ask for any co-sponsors. Any additional co-sponsors, I should say. All right, let's close the machine. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1229.
House Bill 1229 by Representatives Weissman and Soper, also Senators Gardner and Gonzalez, concerning adopting cleanup provisions to Senate Bill 21271, which enacted the 2021 recommendations of the Colorado Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice, and in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is with great chagrin that we move to concur with Senate amendments to 1229.
Do you want to explain the amendment?
Yes. So members, as a reminder, because it's been a bit since we had this bill, this is broadly cleanup provisions to Senate Bill 271, which was last year's CCJJ bill. These cleanup provisions were themselves agreed to by CCJJ. Members involved with that process did notice one thing, and it was done over in the Senate. Inadvertently, in 271, some language was struck in the vein of giving county sheriffs tools for population management, incentives for good behavior, the kind of thing that we want for correctional officers to have. That was inadvertently struck from 271. One of our county sheriffs in Colorado noticed it. It was added back. That is the Senate amendment. That is what we are asking to concur with.
Okay. Then the motion. Representative Soper, did you want to say anything? You're just eye candy. Or did you want to say something? Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Absolutely. I'm not just eye candy. I'm also here to say this is a great amendment. That's it.
We ask for your yes vote on concurrence, members, that's all.
The motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendments on House Bill 1229. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Harrod? Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 48 ayes, 13 noes, 4 excused, the motion passes. And Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the repassage of House Bill 1229 as amended.
Okay, please open the machine, Mr. Shebo, and members, please vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Bockenfeld? All right, Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 43 ayes, 18 noes, and 4 excused, the motion to concur with the Senate to repass, the motion to repass House Bill 1229 is passed. And, all right. What? Co-sponsors, if any. Any? Representative Michelson-Janae wants to co-sponsor. Go ahead and close the machine, Mr. Shebo. All right, let us move on to Mr. Shebo, reading of House Bill 1250, the title of House Bill 1257.
House Bill 1257 by Representatives Weissman and Soper, also Senators Gonzalez and Gardner, concerning the adoption of the 2022 recommendations of the Colorado Criminal Juvenile Justice Commission regarding sentencing provisions for offenses and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and alas, for the second time in a row, I am moving to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1257.
Do you want to explain those amendments?
Gladly. So again, members, I guess for context, the last bill was cleanup to the 2021 work of CCJJ. This is the 2022 set of recommendations from CCJJ. We talked about POW previously in connection with those provisions. There is a hearing that you could shorthand to a restoration of rights hearing for folks adjudicated as a youth for certain predicate offenses, youth only, not adults. There is a hearing whereby one can be restored to those rights upon a showing to a judge. What the amendment in the Senate does is cross-wire that hearing to the list of critical stages under the Victim Rights Act, so that if there is a named victim in the sense of the VRA, those individuals are notified in the event that there is such a hearing. Regardless of what you think about the underlying POW issues, I would submit that this is something that we should all support. Would ask for your yes vote on concurrence for that reason.
Hey, seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendments on House Bill. Oh, Representative Gray wants to discuss this.
Under the rules of the House, I'd like permission to be considered eye candy with respect to this bill.
That is, I'll give it some thought. Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I'm going to have to object to Representative from Broomfield.
I guess you can only have so much eye candy in one hearing. All right, the motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendments on House Bill 1257. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes.
You still have to go vote again. Matt.
All right, please close the machine. With 40 ayes, 21 noes, and 4 excused, that motion passes. Gavel. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1257 as amended.
You've heard the motion. If there's no further discussion, the question before us is the repassage of House Bill 1257 as amended. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Okay, please close the machine. With 40 ayes and 21 noes and 4 excused, the motion for the repassage of House Bill 1257 is adopted. And what? Gavel and then co-sponsors. Are there any co-sponsors to this bill? Any additional co-sponsors, I should say? Oh. Seeing none, please close the machine. All right. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1266.
House Bill 1266 by Representatives Tipper and Gray, also Senator Winter, concerning modifications to the state employee total compensation philosophy to provide flexibility in state employee total compensation practices.
Thank you. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. It's with great courage I move to concur with Senate amendments on House Bill 1266. Thank you.
Can you please explain the amendments?
The only change made in the Senate was to add additional reporting to the Joint Budget Committee as to how the state was handling its paid family leave program, and therefore I would ask for a yes vote.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill 1266. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members please vote. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. All right, please close the machine. With 40 ayes, 21 noes, and 4 excused, the motion passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1266 as amended.
Okay, Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I don't normally come down here on the repass, but on fourth reading of a bill, yes, but this bill has really troubled me for a long time. In particular, on page 4, the language that's being struck out that talks about the benefit is typically consistent with prevailing practices. This is something that we heard in Legal Services Committee, and in a bipartisan way, we decided that the benefit that was actually being provided to state employees actually violated state statute. And so that's why this bill is in front of you, is to try to change that ruling of the Legal Services Committee. That's also why there's a safety clause, so it takes effect immediately. I do not believe it is wise for the state of Colorado to be offering benefits that are not prevailing with current practices. And the reason we know this is that the people of Colorado actually voted on a ballot measure that's going to be taking effect very soon, a year from now. But to jump the gun and to offer something that's not currently prevailing, to me, it's troubling. And that it means that there's going to be benefits that we as a state are going to offer that the private sector won't be able to offer. So members, as you're voting, please think about this. Know that without this bill, these benefits would come into force a year from now. I don't think we need to speed it up. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. The motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendments on House Bill 12 for repassage. The motion before us is on repassage of House Bill 1266. As amended, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Please close the machine. With 39 ayes, 22 noes, 4 excused, the motion for repassage of House Bill 1266 as amended passes. Are there any co-sponsors or additional co-sponsors? Seeing none, go ahead and close the machine. And we will go on. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1038.
House Bill 1038 by Representatives Doherty and Van Beber, also Senators Moreno and Gardner, concerning client-directed legal representation for youth in court proceedings for youth.
Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move the House concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill 1038.
Do you want to explain those amendments?
Go for it.
Representative Doherty.
Thank you. Yes, these are technical amendments which clarify how the effective date will be determined if the legislation goes to the vote of the people. So I do support these changes.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, then the motion before us is concurrence with the Senate amendments on House Bill 1038. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Mr. Shebo, please close the machine. With 61 ayes, 0 noes, and 4 excused, the motion to adopt the Senate amendments passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1038 as amended.
You've heard the motion. If there's no further discussion, the question before us is the repassage of House Bill 1038. Please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Please close the machine. With 61 ayes, 0 noes, and 4 excused, the House Bill 1038 as amended is repassed. Are there any additional co-sponsors? All right, let's close the machine. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1211.
House Bill 1211 by Representatives Soper and Gonzalez-Gutierrez, also Senators Lee and Gardner, concerning the continuation of the Committee on Juvenile Justice Reform and in connection therewith implementing the recommendation contained in the 2021 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies to sunset the Committee on Juvenile Justice Reform.
Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move to concur with the Senate amendments. That was not very good.
Do you want to explain the amendments? Oh, Representative Soper wants to explain the amendments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. This is a major amendment, as you can tell. It strikes out September 1st and replaces it with December 31st. So to give a little extra time to finish the work.
Oh. All right. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is to concur with the Senate amendment on House Bill 1211. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Ricks, Van Beber? Okay. Please close the machine. With 51 aye votes, 10 no votes, and 4 excused, the motion for the repassage of House Bill 1211 as amended passes. Oh, it was concurred? Okay. Concur with the Senate amendments, just to clarify. Are there any
No.
Oh, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1211 as amended.
That's what we did. All right. The motion before us, if there's no further discussion, is the repassage of House Bill 1211. Please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Okay, please close the machine. With 61 ayes and 4 excused, House Bill 1211 is repassed as amended. Are there any additional co-sponsors? Or any? All right, please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, March 24th.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over till tomorrow. Announcements? Is there announcements? Majority Leader? Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I've been asked to remind you all that the red carpet is open and your boxed lunches that you reserved are still sitting there waiting for you. So please head over to the Old Supreme Court on your way to your next adventure today.
Thank you. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Colorado Ag Week continues. Colorado Ag Council has set up lunches for anyone who wants to go down to the first floor west wing to talk about agricultural issues. Join them for a sandwich and celebration of Ag Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf. Representative A. Valdez, or Valdez A.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. It is an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you. Most
All right,
days.
members of Energy and Environment, no committee this week at all.
Huh.
No committee.
All right. Are there any other announcements? See none, we will reconvene tomorrow. No, we won't. We will recess until later. She needs to make the motion. Madam Majority Leader, I think we need a motion. Madam Majority Leader. Oh, do you want to say something first?
No, don't let
Okay.
There's a motion made.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
So moved, no objection. We are in recess until later today. That